So turns out there's a big difference between art critiques and feedback, and that difference is actually really important. Up until this weekend, I didn't really know the difference. I thought feedback and critiques were the exact same thing, and that they played the same role. Someone looks at your art, tells you what they think, and you go from there. But what I realized is they play two really distinct and separate roles, but equally important. So critiques are incredibly valuable and a really concrete way to help improve. You have a trusted source. They can tell you whether or not something's too dark, too light, whether or not it's off balance. And I thought that was the gold standard and that you should pretty much tune out the rest of the commentary, like the person who commented on my artwork and said, you should have done it this way. And those are the kind of comments that I thought to ignore, and those are what I thought feedback was. And so I ignored those comments because it didn't provide meaningful information. What I realized is there's a big difference between one person's opinion and then also learning how people view your artwork and how they experience it. I recently saw the distinction happen in real time when I had the opportunity to draw live in front of people and have a conversation with them about my artwork as I worked. There was a clear difference in how I expected people to react to my artwork and how they actually reacted. What I hoped people would do is look at my artwork, see the letters, and have some sort of reaction, good or bad. But what actually happened, and this is when I knew I had a problem, is I would say, I draw with letters, and each person would react the exact same way. They would, lean close and basically squint, all but needing a magnifying glass to see my letters. And that's when I knew I had a problem, because my goal for my artwork is for people to see the letters. That's literally the whole point. Once people saw the letters, that's when they'd show excitement. That's when they'd show interest. And that's when they could finally see what I was going for with my artwork. And what I realized is that without telling them about the letters, they didn't see the letters. And that was a huge problem. That is the core of my work. And I want people to look at my drawing and wonder, why letters? Why do you draw with letters? And I want there to be a tension between the familiarity of letters as we experience it with language, and then contrast that with reducing the letters to just marks on a page that makes a drawing. And if people don't see that I draw with letters, then the whole concept falls completely flat. What is a rose drawn with letters suddenly just becomes a rose drawn in general. The letters no longer serve a purpose at that point. At first, if I'm honest, I was really bummed out. I felt sad. I mean, I had put so much time and effort into what I was drawing that hearing it was not landing was really hard. And so I put so many hours into each drawing, and I think so hard about my techniques and how I'm working, that the reactions of people leaning in close and not seeing what I wanted them to see it was devastating. But I reminded myself that I would rather learn this now rather than later, especially not 10 drawings down the line. And that this feedback, this information is something I could not have gotten from a critique. People weren't looking at my artwork and thinking, oh, you need to deepen the shadow here, or you need to add a highlight here. They were hearing my idea in real time, looking at the artwork and not seeing it. And it's a fundamental problem with my artwork. Had I not had the experience of seeing those reactions in real time, in person, how they viewed the artwork, I don't know if I would have missed this glaring problem. So for critiques and for feedback, there are different questions being answered. Critiques are telling you about execution. Feedback is telling you about perception. So as I reflected on this realization, there are reasons it matters beyond just aesthetics and art quality, and it becomes more about function overall. This is a distinction that really wouldn't have become a problem right away, but potentially down the line, a big problem. Like, I can only imagine how devastating it would be to have 10 completed drawings only to realize nobody could see my letters. So it's not just nitpicking, there's a real risk of only seeking one type of opinion. I want to balance both technique and perception because the viewer's experience is tied to the technique, and the technique can guide the viewer's experience. They exist together. I won't always be there to explain how my artwork was created, why I created it that way, so it has to carry itself, it has to carry the message on its own. And that makes me wonder, kind of, what else am I overlooking that I might not even see at this point? And what other assumptions might I be making without unknowingly making? And so I'm gonna keep my eyes open moving forward. Oh, back to work.